A ghost town forms when the earth has been fully drained, or when rugged terrain refuses to compromise any longer with human industrial greed. In West Virginia, those traces are locked deep inside isolated canyon labyrinths and along Appalachian hillsides, always covered in thick fog. The collapse of these settlements was not caused by normal urban migration, but by the brutal cycle of extractive industry, exploding overnight because of coal and oil, then vanishing completely once the mineral veins dried up. Yes, these 15 dead points in the mountain state reveal a narrative that is both poetic and dark about a region that once funded America's Industrial Revolution, but is now fully abandoned in eternal silence. Where are they? Let's take a look together. Perched at the bottom of the steep New River Gorge in Fayette County, Thurmond stands as one of the most iconic and unusual ghost towns in United States history. In the early 20th century, this small town was a busy financial artery, moving millions of tons of coal from the Appalachian interior across the country through the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. In its prime, Thurmond was a wild town with huge money flow, home to wealthy banks, the luxurious Glen Hotel, and a noisy red light district across the river, before mine closures and the shift to diesel locomotives permanently killed its economy. Today, Thurmond's administrative status has shrunk to almost nothing, with fewer than 5 permanent residents. Its face presents a haunting yet stunning retro scene. Rows of 3-story red brick commercial buildings stand firmly empty right beside the tracks, letting old railroad crossing signals ring through the silence of the foggy gorge. Leaving the quiet railroad corridor, we move along the same river to enter the dense forest hiding the remains of Nuttallburg's former glory. Founded in the 1870s by legendary miner John Nuttall, this settlement was once recorded as one of the most productive coal towns in the region. The historical detail that makes Nuttallburg so special is the involvement of automotive magnate Henry Ford, who bought the entire town and mine complex in the 1920s. Although Ford poured massive capital into modernizing the town's infrastructure, transportation challenges in the extreme Appalachian terrain caused the project to fail, and the town was gradually abandoned until it fully died in 1958. Its strongest visual power lies in the monstrous scale of its ruins. Surrounded by wild trees, the coal tipple still stands upright, a giant coal sorting tower made of steel and wood, connected to a long conveyor. Stretching from the top of the steep cliff directly down to the railroad below, it creates a dramatic view of ancient industrial architecture. In contrast to Nuttallburg, the ghost town of Spruce in Pocahontas County takes us up to the highest mountain ridge to see a dead point above the clouds. Located at an extreme elevation above steep hills, Spruce once held the record as the highest settlement in all of West Virginia. The town was born in the early 20th century, not because of coal, but because of the logging boom run by the West Virginia Pulp and Paper Company. Because it sat on an isolated mountaintop without proper road access, every heartbeat of life in Spruce depended completely on the steam railroad cutting through deep snow. Once all the commercial pine stands in the mountain region were cut down, the industry left, and Spruce was completely emptied without a single household remaining by the middle of the last century. Today, Spruce's landscape has been fully reclaimed by wilderness. Bone-chilling cold air covers the remains of collapsed wooden house foundations, while the Cass Scenic Railroad tourist line occasionally passes through, breaking the silence of the ancient pine forest that has taken power again. We return to Fayette County and descend the vertical cliffs of Kaymoor. Yes, this coal mining town had a unique layout because it was divided into 2 vertical sections, Kaymoor Top on the high plateau and Kaymoor Bottom far below in the dark gorge. In the past, The two parts of town were connected by a cable incline system, carrying miners up and down the extremely steep slope. Exploring Kaymoor today requires serious stamina because visitors must descend an old wooden staircase with more than 800 steps through dense, wild vegetation on the mountainside. At the bottom of the silent gorge, the camera is met with a raw, dystopian view. The remains of coal processing buildings made of rusted sheet metal, ruined stone coke ovens, and old mining tools left lying where they were abandoned. Following the dirt path along the gorge floor from Kaymoor, our journey leads to rows of ancient stone ruins that look like an archaeological site in the ghost town of Sewell. The most captivating sight centers on nearly 100 coke ovens, built from circular stone formations that resemble giant beehives. These old stone structures are now covered in thick moss. Wild tree roots break through their walls, and some have collapsed back into the forest floor. Founded along the New River, Sewell once served as a pioneer town in the technique of turning coal into coke, a high-grade fuel for the steel smelting industry, beginning in the late 19th century. The town grew into a self-contained settlement with hundreds of worker houses and a company-owned general store, before a bridge collapse and exhausted coal deposits sealed its death in 1956. From the stone ovens of Sewell, the view shifts into a unique retro-modern scene as we cross into Prince, a town frozen in the 1940s. Prince has a slightly different character from other completely dead ghost towns because it stands on the thin line between domestic extinction and isolated transit infrastructure. The absolute uniqueness that makes Prince so strange and worthy of this list is the Prince Railroad Station, built in a World War II era Art Deco modernist style. This station, with its large glass walls, polished terrazzo floors, and retro signboard, is still amazingly maintained and is visited by Amtrak passenger trains several times a week. Meanwhile, outside the station, the surrounding town is a silent, dead place with no commercial activity, surrounded by old, leaning wooden houses slowly being consumed by age. The retro architectural contrast of Prince Station brings us deep into Raleigh County. Here, we can see a rigid, self-contained mining town called Stotesbury. Founded in 1910 by the giant E.E. White Coal Company, Stotesbury was designed as a pure company town, a settlement model where every inch of land, every house, the school, and even the church were fully owned by one single coal corporation. Its heartbeat slowly stopped after the main mine operation closed in the 1950s, followed by a mass migration of residents who had lost their jobs. Exploring Stotesbury today brings us face to face with the decaying physical remains of last century's industrial sociology. Along its quiet asphalt road stands a wooden community church with walls faded pale from age. The foundation of the mine manager's once luxurious house now filled with thorny brush, and the mouth of an old coal mine sealed with concrete blocks and rusted iron, giving off a heavy atmosphere of silence. The remains of corporate glory in Stotesbury then connect to the monumental history embedded in the soil of Quinnimont, the starting point of the entire coal industry in Fayette County. In this remote place, in 1873, the first coal from the new River Gorge region was officially loaded into railroad cars to be shipped out, triggering an economic explosion that changed West Virginia's landscape forever. Commercial life here has long disappeared, leaving this valley wrapped in a mystical silence. The main view marking this historic site is a house built on a quiet hill to honor mining pioneer Joseph Beury. Beneath the shadow of that monument, travelers can only find the ruined foundation of an old station and rows of cableless telegraph poles standing stiffly beside the tracks. Next comes a dramatic view of domestic ruins as we climb the Keeney's Creek cliff path toward the ghost town of Winona. Yes, Winona was founded in the late 19th century alongside the opening of the Ballinger Coal Company mine, which employed hundreds of workers from various European immigrant backgrounds. Winona's visual power for documentary filmmakers lies in the raw, natural decay of its wooden houses. Along the footpath, now covered in wild grass, stand rows of miners' wooden cabins with structures leaning at extreme angles, metal roofs collapsed under tree growth, and old household furniture left to rot inside damp rooms. Yes, Winona radiates a pure Appalachian backwoods atmosphere. A settlement once noisy with family life has now shrunk into a collection of old wooden skeletons slowly collapsing back into the forest floor. Meanwhile, an oil industry anomaly burned the town of Volcano in Wood County out of existence. Unlike most West Virginia ghost towns that were born from coal, Volcano was a product of the oil boom in the second half of the 19th century. The town exploded into an instant metropolis with thousands of residents after rich oil fields were discovered. However, Volcano's death came through a massive and horrifying disaster in 1879. A small fire in one saloon quickly spread to crude oil storage tanks around town, triggering a series of powerful explosions that leveled the entire business district, hundreds of homes, and wooden oil pump towers in less than one night. Because its oil reserves were reportedly already declining after the fire, Volcano was never rebuilt. Exploring the dense forest of Volcano today reveals almost no visible remains of that oil fever. Among the few things that can still be found is an old wooden church in the middle of a cemetery, creating the image of a quiet industrial graveyard beneath the thick canopy of oak trees. The fire tragedy that erased Volcano brings us to the story of a town deliberately drowned in Nicholas County, an underwater ghost town called Gad. In the first half of the 20th century, Gad was a small, peaceful farming community located in a fertile valley along the Gauley River. The settlement's history ended completely in the 1960s, when the United States Army Corps of Engineers launched the massive Summersville Dam project to control annual flooding downstream. All residents of Gad were forced to sell their ancestral land to the federal government. Wooden homes were destroyed, farmland was cleared, and the river was dammed until the entire valley was buried 100 meters beneath the artificial water now known as Summersville Lake. Drone footage above Summersville Lake presents a fresh and stunning ghost town narrative. Giant limestone cliffs surround clear water, while beneath its surface lie the locked remains of Gad's concrete foundations, a silent monument to how a local civilization was sacrificed for modern public safety. From the mystery of the underwater town of Gad, let's head to the legendary ghost town of Beury. Named directly after coal tycoon Colonel Joseph Beury, this town in the late 19th century once stood as a symbol of the district's highest financial prosperity. To display his social status and wealth, the colonel built a grand 3-story Victorian mansion in the isolation of the Appalachian forest. Beury's glory collapsed after the colonel's death, and the inability of his heirs to manage mining operations amid global market price fluctuations, triggering the town's total abandonment in the 1940s. Visiting the Beury site today reveals a surreal and mystical scene. The tycoon's 3-story mansion has completely collapsed under inland rainforest-like vegetation, leaving only moss-covered stone foundation walls and rows of silent old coke ovens. The total disappearance of Beury's mansion reminds us of a sharp geographic name irony deep in the forests of Fayette County. Carrying a name identical to the grand, densely populated borough of New York City, Brooklyn in West Virginia presents the exact opposite physical reality. This settlement was founded in 1901 as a housing pocket for coal miners, operating under the control of the Brooklyn Coal Company, which shut down all operations in the 1950s. Exploring Brooklyn today, we feel the heavy silence of deep forest. Behind thick, thorny brush, history explorers can find the remains of a cracked stone processing building, short sections of railroad track broken apart by tree roots, and old rusted commercial cans. Yes, Brooklyn offers strong documentation of how a grand name can shrink into nothing more than an abandoned historical footnote in the Appalachian wilderness. Next, the commercial name irony of Brooklyn shifts into an eccentric fairy tale anomaly in the ghost town of Cinderella. Domestic life in Cinderella vanished long ago after the coal seam inside the mountain died, leaving the settlement abandoned. Yet its appeal remains strong as one of the most sought-after locations for abandoned landscape photographers across America. The surviving red brick building creates a visual combination that feels strange, romantic, and terrifying, showing how a childhood fantasy can freeze inside a dead industry. Founded in the early 20th century along a remote stream, this mining town was named after the famous fairy tale character Cinderella by the management of the Cinderella Coal Company. To strengthen that narrative identity, the company built the entrance structure to its main mine tunnel in an architectural style resembling a medieval stone fortress or castle, complete with a small watchtower on top. The quiet fairy tale journey in Cinderella finally ends in the bloody and tragic history of Glen Alum. Located in an isolated area surrounded by steep hillside walls, Glen Alum was a prosperous coal mining town whose name is written in red ink in American crime history because of a mass armed robbery on August 14, 1914. Armed bandits entered the town's administrative center and opened repeated fire, killing several law enforcement deputies and company bank employees in a bloody shootout that shook the stability of the interior region. The psychological blow from that tragedy, combined with the Great Depression and the gradual shutdown of the mines, caused Glen Alum to be completely abandoned by residents until its population reached zero by the middle of the last century. Walking along Glen Alum's silent corridor presents an atmosphere of heavy gloom. Among the cold mountain wind moving through old trees stand the stone foundations of a destroyed mining administration building, hiding memories of Winchester bullets and dying screams behind the silence of Appalachian soil that refuses to forget.